Two, and hello, hi, and welcome again to the Terminal Podcast, where in the end, it's all about the numbers. This is a show about baseball when in season, and even when we reach tax day, which is today, it's not always baseball season. I am your host, and we are broadcasting high above Civic Center Station in downtown Atlanta. And tonight, three THS grads will perform a 95 reunion Redux. Chris, what do you remember most about your time at the Castle on the Hill?
Okay, I did prepare an answer. Not getting laid. That's what that
We
I,
have
I'm
I
glad I'm glad Pamela's kids have left the room. I didn't even
no
think
no
of
no 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 no. I was gonna say, don't worry, it wasn't very good.
it.
we welcome a new traveler to the terminal, writer, actor, and co-producer of the award-winning short comedy series Living on a Prairie. Thank you for stopping by, Pamela Bob. Uh,
I'm very honored you asked me to come on.
well, I would ask when you walked way back when, was this the life you predicted for yourself? A award-winning writer, actor, and co-producer?
Um, yes and no. So yes to the actor part, because I always knew I wanted to be an actor. I came out of the womb knowing I wanted to be an actor. So that was the part that I was gonna like die trying at least just to do. So that part is pretty awesome. And the fact that I achieved, like Broadway and that kind of stuff. That was definitely like the
All
lifelong
right, all right,
dream.
before we get too far, I have thought of myself as an actor since I was in seventh grade honors theater class at Thomas Jefferson Middle School.
Mhm.
Uh, so Pam, as an actual working actor, I'm gonna request we do a little improv. Uh, the
Oh,
scene is
oh
Wait,
boy.
wait,
the
wait,
night.
wait, wait, wait.
Oh,
First of
yeah,
all, Martin, you don't even
yes,
know because you didn't do your research,
not at
but
all.
there is one other person on this podcast who was in the award-winning
Oh
Living
yeah,
on the Prairie.
Oh,
right.
I I was
There's
not aware
it's a
of
little
that.
Easter egg in there. That
Yes,
Chris,
it is a little Easter egg.
yes,
Yes.
Chris, why don't you do you want to say who you were in Living on a Prairie?
I was the bouncer outside of the I don't
The
know the proper
club.
term. I want to the
Club.
club that involved men who dress like women and women who dress like men.
The club, just the
The
club. That's
club.
all. A nice special club. It's in the last final episode of the six-part series. Yes.
Yes.
You see Chris there for sure.
It's a
Okay, now
non-speaking role though. She didn't want to pay me, so she
No one got paid, including myself. Again, didn't miss much. Okay, sorry, Martin, go on.
oh no,
Oh, wait, but before we get to what you were gonna say, I was gonna say the part that was not expected in terms of
mhm.
how my life has ended up was the writer part of it. Because I always focused so much on being an actor that I didn't really know that I could also be a writer, even though I knew I was always good at writing, but I didn't know that that was also something I could do until much later in life. So that's the surprise.
I was cutting off because I was hopefully going to then talk about that further at
So-
the improv session, but that's
Sorry,
okay.
sorry.
That's all right.
We
You're
can
not,
edit this thing, right?
you're, unfortunately, this is like a radio show, so it's going to pretty much go as is.
Ah, pressure.
So, so the improv scene that I was trying to recreate
Yes.
is 1995 high school, Teaneck High School graduation reunion. We can put it at 30 years because sadly we're that far away from it, which is
We are.
that 30 years coming up, actually. I take that back. 30 years coming up,
It's soon.
right?
Yeah.
So
Oh God.
well, we can go back to the 25-year one that I missed. Pam, both me and you will play ourselves, and
Okay.
Chris will play a drunk or the bartender or both, whichever
So
one. The drunk goes with him also playing himself, so it works for everybody involved. I'm gonna introduce the scene and address Chris. And once Chris answers my question, that's Pam, when you can come in.
Oh
I'm
boy.
speaking as if I, teach a drama class, which I do not. So uh, just just so it sounds
I
like I
think
did though,
this
right? For a
may
second there.
require you to do that after
I
this.
I
Yes. Just
so
play whatever prospective employer, this video, and they'll be like, he's brilliant.
well, all right. So everybody knows their parts, right? Okay.
Sure.
And action. Do, 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 do. Hey, look, it's a bar. Can I get because it's 25-year anniversary. Let me get a vodka tonic with lime, please.
Absolutely, young fella. What are you here for?
I'm here for my high school reunion. It's been 25 years, so gosh, I'm in my late 30s, early 40s at that point. Yeah. What's that? 17 plus 25 is 42.
You don't know
It,
how old you are currently?
uh,
Boy, that's weird.
in this scene, no. I mean, I know how old I am now, but when
So
this
what brings you back here
begins,
to see your old classmates, fella?
see, at any point, I'm waiting for someone to walk in the room, but
This
that's
is going
okay.
great.
Other
Okay, no,
classmates are
that's my
gonna
cue.
walk in
That's my
at
cue.
some
I'm looking for that guy that I did the morning schedule with every morning in the principal's office that senior year. Who was that guy?
Oh my
Martin.
God, did I do that? Wow. I've
Martin
really had too many of these vodka so that's
Oh my
that's
gosh, Martin, it's you. You look like downtown Atlanta.
yes, I do. Again,
You
Young
did a
lady,
lot of
did you go
work
to
on
high
this
school?
show.
You went to high school with this fella?
when
I
when
did.
when you
Lucky
become
you.
when you become an AT alien, this is what we are able to project as our vision. So, how are you doing, Pam? What's going on?
Can I tell a real story from the last high school reunion we just
Please
had?
feel free.
Not just had, I guess it was a while ago. I actually had taken the night off of my Broadway show that I was in to come to our high school reunion, which was pretty cool.
All right.
That
That's
was a nice,
cool.
like, oh, I'm
It's
doing
a
my
little
thing.
bit
I
of a
didn't
name
take off.
drop. So you've been on
I
Broadway.
didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell anyone. It was just for me to know.
Yeah, well,
Like,
you're
this is
name
so
dropping
cool.
it now, so I'm sticking with it. Um, you were
Now
on
I am.
Broadway. You were on what does that mean? Like, I mean, like people say that, and is it? I mean, besides, were you in a theater on the street? Does that count as Broadway, or is it just, you know what I mean? Like, what does it mean when
Sadly,
you
no.
say when you can say I was on Broadway?
Yeah, it means that you're actually in a show in a Broadway theater in New York City. Yes.
Hey, young lady. I
Oh,
think I
just
saw you in one of those shows. Were you in a show with Bob Saget,
I sure was.
star of stage and screen and funny fella?
Yes. Yes, I
Wow.
was. Sir, good sir.
How was it working with him is probably the question you get all the time, but how is it working as a Broadway, as a not like even a film actor? You know what I mean, it's like here in Atlanta we get a lot of film productions and stuff like that, but you're
Yeah.
rocking on Broadway. That's, I mean, we get Broadway shows coming into the Fox, but that's
Mm.
not the same as being in New York working. Because I'm assuming if you're a working actress that's been on Broadway, you're not always on Broadway. You're doing some off theater stuff like that. You're doing, no, everything's Broadway and up pretty much.
No, and the big fallacy too is that you think like I've made it to Broadway. My career is uphill from here, and it couldn't be further further from the truth. It's just it's just you luck timing and luck and preparation, and it all comes together, and then you're unemployed the next, the show closes and you're unemployed again. So there's never a guarantee, even if you have that credit that things are all going to go uphill, that things are all like an easy ride now, because it's the life of an actor is real. It's a real
So
motherfucker.
I don't want to go too in depth on this, but I've been curious. So it almost makes you have to be part of the union just so you can keep health insurance, right? Because if you're working and you're unemployed for those type of times, how would you be able to,
Well,
to go? Go ahead, please.
No, you don't get insurance unless you work a certain amount of weeks a year. And if you can't get a job, then you don't get those weeks, which means you don't get that health insurance.
Wow.
So you
Yeah.
make sure your husband keeps his
So,
teaching job
yeah,
so that
exactly.
we have health insurance.
I mean, for real, like I'm very lucky that I mean, and I had my fortunately I had my actor's insurance for years and years and years. I was very, very lucky that I was working, but there were times where I wasn't working, and certainly COVID and you know, I had babies and took breaks, and yeah, that insurance would not have come in at all. So yeah.
So before I forget, so what'd you do like after graduation? Like, dude, like what'd you like go to college or whatever, man?
I did. So I went to Cincinnati Conservatory of Music, which
Oh,
is a, you
fancy.
know, one of the more prestigious programs in the country. And I
Fancy.
hated every second of it. And it was well, here's the good news. The good news is that the talent there was incredible. And so you know, you learned the caliber in which you had to be just to compete in the industry. So that was a plus. But the negatives were it was a very toxic environment. They pitted the students against each other. It was a sort of evil puppet master who was the head of the program, very abusive. And on top of that,
Cat fight. Oh no, sorry.
no, but it was, you know, and
No,
I don't,
I'm sure it was like mentally, yeah.
it was
Well,
mentally screwed because also there was a cut program. And so they could cut you at any time, meaning you're out of the school, like you're
Oh,
out.
wow.
So it was constant. I did not have a normal college university experience. Like it wasn't like parties and you could cut class whenever you want. It was very 24/7, very cutthroat, very there was no cutting class. You're constantly performing or constantly rehearsing, which sounds like fun, except when it's under that kind of pressure cooker, it's really difficult.
So the
And
writer,
I
just hearing
so
that really quickly, the writer in me is going, so where is there already the 8 part Netflix series doing that I just didn't pay attention to? Or
well, I think
why have you not written that Netflix 8
I
part series? Or have you already? And
no,
I've
I
just missed it.
haven't. And I think part of the problem is because things have still been kept under wraps. Like, you know, I'm sure it's like abusive sports programs, right? Like,
mhm.
Mm,
if they're number one in the country, no one's going to rock that boat and no one's going to come to your defense if you say, hey, that coach was really abusive to me, because they don't care because your team is number one and it's getting a lot of money and it's churning out players and like, so
yeah.
no one's doing anything about it. And it was the same with my program, which was, you know, we were like number one, number two in the country. Um, Everyone knew there was
Correct.
abuse happening and no one did anything about it because they weren't going to mess up the program. And so it, you know, it was sort of under that. And I don't think there's really been there hasn't been like a reckoning. And it wasn't just my school. I mean, so many of these training programs are abusive, just really abusive.
Do
And
you
there's a lot of trauma for years, years, years. I mean, I still deal with negative thoughts of people saying things to me and treating me certain ways that I had in college that I still battle with. And I know a lot of people do too. I know a lot of people's lives are really sort of ruined by some of the abuses that went on in these programs. It's really
So
good stuff. On the other hand, you know, it looks good on my resume. They did
yeah.
it.
That's what I was gonna ask. Did the did it was it worth it? I mean, like, do you kind of, 10, 15 years afterwards, I know we're past that, you know what I mean? Like look back and go, that did help me. I was able, if I didn't go through that or early on at the very least.
You know, I'm not a believer in having to compete with everyone else in order to prove that you're hard as nails and can get through the business. I mean, listen, the industry is hard and there's so much rejection and you do have to have a thick skin. I mean, Jesus, just auditioning, you have to have a thick skin. The industry, you could be the most talented person on the planet and it doesn't matter. Again, it's luck and timing and preparation, right? And if you're one of the lucky ones, you succeed. But it has nothing to do with talent. Um, Is it worth it? I mean, on one hand, yes, again, because I got the experience of knowing the caliber in which I knew I had to be in order just to compete in New York City, right? So great. I met my husband there, so that's nice.
I
I
was
mean,
going to get to that, Pamela.
yeah,
You
yeah,
have a
yeah.
wonderful man who you've been with since and have two wonderful children.
Yes. So
Wow.
that for that alone, yes, yes, yes. And I have a couple of very, very, very close friends who my closest friends were not in my department, actually. And again, Martin, like because I was in a conservatory, it was just my class. So it wasn't like university where you're like meeting a lot of people, and this was very condensed into your program pretty much, or the people surround, like the theater department, the
I mean,
wardrobe, the technical theater.
yeah, I was gonna say
That's
because
about it.
no, I
Um,
yeah,
and so my class was only 9 of us.
huh,
Actually, we started off with 24, 25, and that's how many were cut in the first
wow.
2 years. So it was very brutal.
Pamela, I love the sports analogy. I mean, you hit it
It's
on
the
the head
same thing.
with that the competitive, and we could go down the litany of basketball and hockey and all these
Yeah.
different places that have abused mentally, physically, sexually, all this different stuff. But you were saying there hasn't been a reckoning yet. And again,
Mm-mm.
we're not trying to break a reckoning here. However, I know I have not watched it, but I know there's that Netflix series right now. I think it's Netflix about the child actors.
Right on the set.
Yeah. And like, may this start to lead to other dominoes falling?
Yeah, I mean, God, that series just broke my heart. It's some sick stuff out there.
Yeah. Like I said, I have not watched it. I've only read it about it.
Yeah, and there's a particular, I mean, that's slightly, I know what you're going for. It's slightly different than in these
Mhm.
type of programs, but abuse is abuse. And in so many of these acting trainer programs, it's just abusive, period. And I don't know, I don't understand these adults who have the opportunity to mentor, to be the mentors, to be the ones to send out into the world the most talented kids in your country, right? And to be their shining light, to be their mentors, truly. And instead, it's sort of like we were viewed like in contempt, right? Like it was like, and I don't know if that's because they're in their own academic bubble. I don't know whether it's because they're unhappy because they didn't achieve what they wanted to achieve, which I think has a lot to do with it. But I don't know, there's a lot of cruelty, and I'll never understand it. I'll never
to
understand it.
use to use a somewhat similar sports analogy, which probably isn't right. Those are almost like the managers and the scouts and all the people that you
Yep.
don't really hear about that are baseball that had the dream that I want to be a baseball player, and
Yeah,
someone goes at some point, yeah, not so much,
that's right.
so a little lesser.
It's exactly the same. It's exactly the same. So, and with the performing arts, you're dealing with your actual emotions, right? Like your actual vulnerabilities. Those are the tools that you're using. And so for you to be in such an unsafe space is really antithetical to what you're supposed to be doing, which is in a safe space where you can express your emotions, where you can express your vulnerabilities and not be judged and not be under fear. And it just wasn't that. But also, I will say, and I don't know if you two also experienced this, you know, I went to Cincinnati, Ohio after living in Teaneck, New Jersey, 2 miles outside of New York City our entire lives, in a very diverse, multicultural upbringing where diversity was celebrated. And all of a sudden, I was in Ohio with people that had never gone to school with a Black person before, or I was the first Jewish person that people had met. And the cafeteria was completely segregated. One half of the cafeteria was all Black, the other was all white. And it was like I walked into a completely different universe that was really shocking to me. And the real shock of it was realizing that how we grew up in Teaneck was not the norm. And that what I was looking at, everyone else's experience was what most of the country is like. And that to me was the biggest culture shock of all. And I had a really difficult time with it the entire time I was there at that school. And I think so many
Breeze,
people
you there? Okay, well, this is
have
perfect because
talked
I was trying
about
to
this,
cut her down to
that they went
close
Oh,
out.
to
Pam,
college
you
and were
still
like,
there?
what the hell is this?
Huh.
oh, oh,
Connection
there
is
you are.
hold
Okay.
on,
All right.
I'm changing my network. Hold on.
Okay.
Experiencing technical difficulties. Well, Martin, I'm
Well,
sure you had the same experience going to Boston for, I mean, I know we joke about it,
I
but
did, and that's why I did. I was almost like that's an absolute perfect place to close because it's a tease for something further in the future. So while Pam is switching over to a new network,
Okay, I'm
I
here.
will.
I'm here. I'm here.
I'm into my closing now. I've said I dusted off the Isn't It Funny How Time Flies, the yearbook, which I
Oh
was
God.
in a bunch. In fact, the same number of times as Chris, according to the index. So,
Oh,
Pam, I'm asking
yeah.
Pamela, do you
Yes.
remember of a general idea of where you were in the class picture on the steps?
Yeah. I was standing next to Chris Elliott, who I was dating at the time.
Yeah.
And we
part of the
were,
Sherman crew, Chris
yeah.
Elliott.
Oh, hold on a
And
sec, cheater.
Wait, I'm going to the book. Oh, I can't look at it?
No, you can't look
Oh,
at
okay,
it.
I won't.
okay.
Okay,
And
I
we
didn't look. I
were,
didn't.
I want to
That's
say
fine.
we were sort of halfway
That's not
off.
the question. I was just saying I've got you between Lori and Craig. I don't want to start using the last
Who,
like
me?
well, yes, I'm saying where you were pictured. Chris Elliott's right there. Craig's probably the step right
I'm
behind
next
you.
to Chris Elliott. I know that.
Yes. But you'll if you look when you look back, but you won't do it now, you're also pictured in the book working on your Theater 3 class monologue project. So you were a writer
Yes.
back then as you're a writer now. And
Yeah.
according to the index, you were featured 6 times.
How many times
But
were you
of the
featured?
but of the total pages, 270 pages, which page number was your senior portrait on? Is the question. I just need a number. Chris,
Okay, I'm
you
guessing.
would have
I'm just
go
gonna
ahead.
put a random number, 46.
46. Price is Right rules, Chris. You're gonna go higher or lower?
I'm gonna go higher, but I'm gonna go like 85.
85. 85 and 46. The trivia answer will be in the description for the next episode. You can
Oh
listen to Pam,
no!
Pam Bob. You can listen to her on a whole bunch of different things. Like you can see her on Broadway. I don't have any other plugs to give for her, but I'd like to
I'll
thank
give you a
her.
plug. What you
Go
can
ahead.
watch the series on livinonaprairietv.com. Or you can find me on oh God, just find me, just the Pamela Bob on Instagram or Prairie TV on Instagram. And also I'm hosting a podcast at the moment also with cast members, original cast members from Little House on the Prairie, called Little House 50 for 50 podcast. So that's been a fun project. That's a whole other story, but we won't talk about that
No,
now.
you'll not. So there you go. I'd like to thank Pam and all our plugs and Chris for stopping into the terminal. I hope each of you find your way home safely. The same sentiment for any and all listeners. Safe travels from the terminal and good night.
Good night.